Let me share the screen. So in the last session, as a part of complete CI/CD pipeline, we created a local repository as well as we created remote repository. We pushed the code from the local repository to Bitbucket and GitHub. So once the source code management is done, as I mentioned in the last session, our focus is integrating all the tools and completing the pipeline. That's all. So as a part of the first stage, source code management is over. It means our code is available at either Bitbucket as well as either at the GitHub. So once the source code is maintained at the shared repository, we need to process it. We need to go with the build automation. Soon after developer builds the code, conduct some tests. Once they feel the test has been done successfully at their end, once they will share the code to the repository. After successful completion of all unit tests and integration tests and merges are over, they will maintain a clean, clear, effective code at the repository. Once the code is available at the repository, the next stage in the pipeline is you need to perform build automation. So build automation, you need to automate the builds. An automated build always helps us to create an application build using a build automation tool such as, either Maven or Ant or Gradle. Depends on the kind of technology, what kind of programming language we used inside the programming language, and what kind of build automation tool our DevOps team is injected or integrated as a part of CI/CD pipeline. Using this build automation tool, you need to perform a build lifecycle. Build lifecycle is a collection of different phases which helps us how to perform default lifecycle. If you use a Maven, here again I said our objective is integrating all the tools and giving a complete real-time automation lifecycle, how source code management is triggered, not triggered, how all the phases in the CI/CD pipelines are integrated either in manual or automation or end. So depends on the tool you are used, whether it's at Gradle or Ant or Maven. Especially Maven have its own life cycle. It's a default life cycle and a clean life cycle and a site life cycle. So, but our journey, our instant discussion is how this life cycle is configured. As a DevOps engineer, how to integrate the build automation in the part of CI. So today we will complete the build automation. Then tomorrow we will integrate the CI. We go with the CI, continuous integration. So inside the Jenkins, we will manually configure the tools as well as through automation we are going to deploy. So the build automation is nothing but how to build the process, how to generate the build. Build is nothing but, observe very carefully, every build tools in the market, because once the code is available in this way, like you have a source code at your repository, this is the different directories and files are available. Once source code is available at the repository, how these files are integrated, how these files are understandable by the build automation tool, and what is the prerequisite to run this application code by the build tool in order to generate the package once you integrate the package, once you integrate the tool in the Jenkins. Not only Jenkins, any kind of automation tool you selected, like a proprietary, like vendor tool or open source tools, how this build automation tool will collect the code from the repository, how it compiles the source code, how it runs the test, and how it scans the source code for quality, and how it generates the package, and how it how it stores the packages to the common repository for maintaining the various builds in the form of various package naming conventions like build files or build formats. Then how you run the integration test, and how the post integration, the pre and post integration test has been conducted. Finally, how to deploy generated packages into a target environment like either Tomcat or WebLogic or WebSphere. Then how finally generate some reports, how you maintains your descriptors, how you maintain the different repositories. Like there are so many activities are there. That's why always remember it. Build automation is essential for continuous integration, and the rest of the automation is effectively execute when only if the build automation process is effectively automated. If the build automation process is not properly integrated and not properly defined, your continuous integration, delivery, deployment cannot be automated. So to perform this, every project must have some build file. Use a Maven, the build file is a pom.xml. Again, I'm repeating, we are not focusing on the detailed discussion of each and every tool. Our focus is how to integrate GitHub, Maven, SonarQube, Nexus, Tomcat, Docker, Ansible, Kubernetes. All these 10 tools you are configuring manually plus through Ruby scripting, so that the objective of DevOps come to the fulfilling. So in the last session also I explained very clearly, when you are talking about the CI/CD process, what is our target environment? What kind of tools you are integrating? In each and every tool, what kind of configurations, what kind of settings, what kind of files, what kind of other configurations, and how you are integrating, how you are triggering, everything you have to keep in mind, and must have some existence in the way, so that the way will propagate the tools, the way the the ways it will are the ways are pushing your environment in a proper way so that all the tools will be properly initiated and integrated and finally run our cycles in effective way. That's why if you are talking about the source code management, our Bitbucket repository must have code. Already I have. Next, in the build automation, in my environment or at your repository, along with the source code, you must have a build file called the pom.xml file. So this is a file maintained by the dev team as a part of the source code management. Here I don't want to make arguments with you. I don't want to confuse you because you are very beginners. You need a lot of maturity to understand the techie wise. As per the polluted environment, most of the people are simply ignoring this part of build automation. That is a developer's duty. You can also feel like that. In case if your fate is so excellent, who are recruited you as a DevOps engineer, in that place, if there is no build and release activities, if there is no a specific engineer who are not effectively performing the build automation in that environment, they will ask us to build the files. But as per the current trend, you don't worry about it. Along with the source code repository, you have a build files. Again, I'm repeating, if the build file is not there, that's why continuous integration never trigger it. If there is no continuous integration, then there is no deliver and deployment. That's every phase is a key part of the DevOps cycle. So to run this pom.xml file, so you need a Maven. The Maven is a tool written in the Java. So where you are running the application, like Linux server, that environment may be a dev environment, QA environment, and SIT and UAT and production. If it is a production, you need a JRE, Java Runtime Environment. So if you want to generate the package, if you want to run some Maven lifecycle in order to generate the package on your Linux server, you must have JDK as well as a JRE as well as a Maven. Then in our local environment, you must have a Git and you must have a GitHub or a Bitbucket. That Bitbucket must have a source code. Along with the source code, it must have some build file. The build file must be valid file. Okay. So once the build file is available, through Maven, you run some lifecycle in order to generate the package. So it's a matter of 10 minutes. Just again, if I simply explain in a simple, easy way, like the developer maintains a source code at repository, simple. Then open your Jenkins, add your GitHub into the Jenkins. Then configure your JDK and Maven configuration in your Jenkins. And simply configure the build automation process in the Jenkins and simply click on build now. Before continuous integration at your build environment, you go with the drill runs. I mean, you can go with the dry run. So dry run, that's called, I can say, mock builds. So mock builds, that's why in the previous week I explained the power of, like I gave complete discussion on roles and responsibilities and build and release process, how it works. So what is the prerequisites now? In my Linux server, I must have JDK, I must have a Maven. Then you try to download the code from the GitHub and let us try to run the Maven lifecycle and generate the package. So then you at your build environment, at your local environment, you feel or you try to come to the conclusion, yes, my mock build, my whatever I working on the build is perfectly valid, so that you can confidently integrate the build process and source code management as a part of CA process. Okay, so for this, what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to configure my Java and Java and Maven. So first you go to, you can configure the tools at your present working directory, either at your local user like EC2-user, or you can create your own users, or you can log in as a root admin. Here the discussion is not at the whether you logged as a normal user or whether you logged as a root user, doesn't matter. Well, just give a second, I'll close the door. So here the main focus is how these tools are recognized, how the tools are configured. That's why a lot of times I said, even in the user administration, I effectively explained the power of .bash rc file. Okay, .bash underscore profile, .bash history. Again, I'm repeating user management, file permission, file accessing, file handling, package management, volume management, networking knowledge, and server updations, server configurations, service management. These are all pillars of the DevOps engineer. Right. So, and more on here, the build file can also have the Docker integration also. Suppose the build file used to generate a package for web application, right? For web application, what is our build file generally? Either jar or var or year. Java RQs, web RQs, and enterprise RQs. If you use Java as a part of your project, if it is a desktop application you are deploying, there is a jar. If it is a three-tier architecture like a web application, web RQs. If it is in a distributed architecture like entire architecture, it means banking, finance, security, big application, enterprise RQs. The end target is once you use a build tool, you finally get some build file as a end product, end output as a var. That var is or year is for web application running, sorry, is for understanding the application, or is a output how to deploy an application to the Tomcat. This is called a traditional web development, traditional web deployment. Whether you can deploy through a Linux shell scripting, or whether you deploy through Groovy scripting, or whether you deploy through shell scripting, or whatever the techniques used. But nowadays, if your application is a microservice based application, it means your application is using microservice architecture. There, if they use a container environment, containers they use very effectively. Then as a developer, their beauty is they shifted from the traditional web development to the microservice architecture. That movement, they invited or they injected a Docker and Kubernetes as a part of their deployment development. That's why Here, the developer may write the pom.xml file, not may. That's why again I'm repeating. I have a lot of meaning about my statement. But you're a beginner. We should always inject in an understandable way. But the subject and knowledge, you should not always give weight discussion and weight points. Whether you understand or not, try to talk about facts. Because environment is completely changed nowadays. Environment is absolutely updated a lot. So that's why you are going to working on the prestigious billions of projects. Definitely you need to learn so many things at instantly. That's why you must tune your mindset accordingly at that instant, whether you like it or not. That's why IT is having its own different shades actually. So that's why you should always be ready to accept the challenges and try to accept the new things. I'm talking here, if it is a microservice based application, the developers also inject the part of containers in the pom.xml file. Got it? So they'll define some Docker files. They'll define a Docker dependencies inside the pom.xml file. So that's why through Maven with the Docker integration, we can generate the package as an image. Most of the people, when they fire MVN package, still you will get only var or year or jar based on your configuration inside the pom.xml. But if your target is microservices, then they will add the they will add the Docker as a part of the build file. They inject the container dependencies. They define the Docker definitions inside the pom.xml file. They integrate the Docker plugin inside the pom.xml file. When they perform MVN Docker build, the Maven generates the Docker images. Keep in mind. That's the way of the implementation. Now here, as per the today's discussion, we are going to generate the traditional web deployment as a var. If we speak technically, we are generating the output as a var that needs to be deployed inside your Tomcat or WebLogic or WebSphere. Okay. So now for this, I'm going to log in into the root admin as a root user. cd and apt. I'm going to the optional directories. If I say ls, there are 2 root folders are available at the AWS. Now, so let us go to the documentation, try to install Java very effectively. So I want to check is there Java 1.7 is already exist or not. If it is exist, I don't want to work with the 1.7, I need a 1.8. So nothing is there. Then try to install Java. So that's a package management is very, very important. Copy. So just I install the 1.8. Yes. And more on why it is 1.8. You can work with the 1.9, 1.10, 1.11, 1.2, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, even Java 14 or 15, 16, almost they develop a lot. So that's why who are you to talk? Who are you to decide the environment and knowledge and approaches? Don't baseline the blindly and bluntly. So that depends on the professionals working on this specific project. Maybe tomorrow they may call you for the Hadoop deployments, or maybe they work for the MS build. They may be called for Azure. They may call for anything, right? So DevOps engineer duty is you should understand the entire flow from the starting to ending. You should understand the developer's need, QA needs, environment conflicts, and try to interact with the networking team and understanding their needs, understanding the importance of how much dependencies we are getting from them as a part of the CI/CD pipeline. So based on this, so many techie factors will be influenced to make your CI/CD pipeline is so effective. That's why collaboration, coordination, and tools. These are all basic pillars of the environment. So now my JDK was installed successfully. So one of the common sense is, as a DevOps engineer working on the application, guys, at least you should know what is the application, what type of application it is. If it is a container-based application as a microservices, or if it is a mobile application, or it is a web-based application, what is the source code structure at least? On top of the directory structure, what are the various files we have, especially in your Docker point of view, Docker file. At your Jenkins point of view, there is a pipeline as a code called Jenkins file. If it is a Kubernetes, different YAML files and different properties, different build profiles, different configuration of the properties, and finally different Ansible playbooks and Terraform files. At least at your end, these are the 6 to 7 files you require. Plus, what is our end target? End target is deploying of what application? A web application. If it is a web application, what kind of web deployment descriptor need to be understand? If it is a Java-based application, how the JSP and the J2EE and servlets application, servlets architecture. If it is a .NET, then how the ASP.NET combination with the MVC, and what are the various configurations are there. And if it is a Salesforce applications, again I'm repeating, if you're looking at all demonstrations in your at your faculty side, we are going to deploy application Java based, right? It's not like that. So 70 to 80% of the times your application is under Java and .NET. Sometimes you may be work for the Appian based deployment, you may work for the Salesforce application deployment, you may work for the Hadoop based application deployment, you may work for the Python. That's why don't blindly say. That's why from the beginning, what kind of counterpart of explanation I'm giving. The DevOps engineer duty is apting the process. That's why now in this Linux server we are configuring the Java. Suppose they may be configure another tool like MS Build. They may be configure the Bamboo. They may go with the other tools. That's in a couple of minutes. You go to the Googling and download your Essence tools and try to configure and try to work on it. Once you know the process, you must be ready to adapt it. Okay. So but as a part of interview, you can select Java based. Yes, these are the application I deployed. So once my JDK was installed, now in order to, again I'm said, how the tools is recognized by the environment called operating system. Operating system should always need environment variables. What is environment variable? Environment variable used to recognize what kind of software you are running. Because to detect the particular software by the operating system, every operating system should recognize the software as a environment variables. That's why here, after successful Java installation, we need to set up the home path for our Java. So that let us go and find out where exactly JRE exists. Here JDK. So if you want to develop the Java code, there is a JDK. If you want to run the Java code, there is a JRE is required. JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. JDK stands for Java Development Kit. So while working on the configuration of your tools and the scripting and execution without Linux command, what you done? How can you understand? That's why people crazily say that 2 hours and 3 hours Linux is enough. How can I say, man? So, so you need a solid time you need to put, and you need to understand the Linux combination on various factors. So that's why at script development, at debugging, at monitoring, at build automation side, at the integration part, at delivery part, it may be a cloud combination where you are in the administrative way. Every part of the action, Linux will say and come on to know what command is required at that moment. So how you simply ignore the operating system, how you simply ignore the network, how you simply ignore the databases, how you simply ignore the servers. Obviously, it's our life. That's why If you are not so stronger an exposure on the environment, operating system, networking, and scripting language, then how can I become a, say, I'm a DevOps engineer? That's why the commands. Now here I'm trying to run this command to find out the possible JRE task which is located in our operating system using find with the head combination. So I recognize this is my path of the JVM, which is supporting the 64-bit architecture, right? Okay. So next, you need to configure the environment variables. That's again, I'm repeating the bash underscore profile. That's why go and rerun my previous recorded video. I exclusively explain the bash profile. I'm going to whenever users are created, there are 3 fundamental files will automatically initialize at your home directory, which is initiated by the administrator at the time of user creation. So cd-tld, right now I'm at the root, then I'm configuring the profile at the root user level. So go to insert mode and try to give the Java underscore home. Java underscore home is the environment variables. Always given environment variable is in lower uppercase letter. And go and copy the path of the JVM in order to understand where exactly JRE exists in order to run our Maven. So this is, then you go and give semicolon. In Windows, you give the comma to separate variables, but here in Linux, you must give the colon, and a dollar. Dollar is a kind of token. Is a kind of should not say operator. Actually, there is a different meanings are there. It's a kind of symbol. It's a kind of keyword, even not keyword. It's a kind of symbol, better to call as. If it is symbol, then people say it's a operator. That's why I can say it's a token. It's a kind of identifier. So that identifier identifying the Java home is a variable. So I set the Java. Go and save and execute. And one more is, you are one of the another fundamental points you need to understand. And you are building the automation scripts, either Python or Groovy or shell scripting, you need editors, right? I hope here some of the existing batch, I may not deeply dive into the VI, Vim and Nano. But when I finish this, when I come back with the normal tools, definitely I will explain the Vim commands, especially editors. A lot of commands you need to understand. Save and exit. So my Java was installed successfully, and go and test the Java is working fine or not. In order to print, use this command. Echo is a command, right? In order to print just like it is not affected, you better to exit and re-log in as a sudo su-. Then you go and print echo home. So my Java home path is properly recognized, so that I will confidently run my BAM and bells using the JRE. Okay, what next? My Java is ready. Now let us go and check the Java is installed or not. So Java and -version is a command. So open JDK, got it, and runtime environment, we got it. So once the Java was done, what is the next? I want to generate my build called Maven. Sorry, I want to generate the package. For generating the package, what we require, you require a builder tool. What is a builder tool require? A Maven. As you know, guys, 3 hours is enough, guys, or 10 hours is enough to understand the Cicd pipeline. Very simple, right? So you can confidently say the same thing. But interview is not so straight, right? They may ask so many indirect questions. You must answer it. They may ask so many questions in the Docker. They may ask so many questions in the Kubernetes. They may ask so many troubleshooting questions, right? So if you are very straight about your life cycle as a pipeline, then you are very clean about your DevOps. So It doesn't mind. It doesn't matter. It matters only how you are exploring the tools and how you are integrating the tools as a part of the CI/CD. So that's why I want to show this one complete from scratch to ending. So I don't get any kind of comments from you that I don't know how to do it. That's your pain, right? So I need a next Maven. So the GitHub configure done, Java is configured done. Then the next part is Maven. So Maven is done by Maven is developed by the Apache Foundation. So you need to go to the Maven. You just go. Even if you go to the continuous integration, whether you run the Jenkins or whether you use a TeamCity or Bamboo or maybe GitHub or maybe GitLab or whatever the CI process is chosen, if it is a Java-based application deployment, up to the continuous integration, source code management, build automation, static code analysis, generating the running the unit test, generating the packages, and verifying the packages, running the integration test, generating the packages, deploying the packages, and site generation, and making the descriptor as an assemblies is again a part of Java. Even if there is no Java, your Java-based application cannot run. That's why you try to configure that part of the tools in your CA process too. So now download the Maven. Go to this is the official website. So you have a software files in the form of tar.zz and binary zip. And you know, there is a backups. There's a backups. So that's why in the evening batch, I explored a Linux in a more in-depth way. And in the morning Canada batch, we started Linux. See, after 1.5 months, after successfully completion of 15 services, like we discussed VPC almost 10 to 15 hours VPC only. Then after that we discuss IAM. Then we discuss S3. How many hours we discussed? Then we discuss about the AMI, Elastic Block Store. Then we discussed about the code commit, code build, code deploy, code pipeline, SNS. Okay, so then we started the Linux. In the Linux part, backup is also very, very important. In order to take the backup, in order to export the file, in order to import the file, you must know the backup plans. That's why once we finish this CI/CD process, when I come back to the Linux, we'll talk about backup plans. There, tar commands, cpio commands, rsync commands, gunzip command, gzip commands, and these are all. And even we'll talk about incremental backups or full backups. Then what is the differences between incremental backups and full backups? As a part of the DevOps engineer, you should take some backup of your artifacts. Sometimes you need to take the backup of the data. Maybe they ask you. That's why don't always say I'm not administrator, so that I can't do it. No, it's not like that. Based on the requirement, you need to do something. So now my Maven is available in the form of ZZ format. I'm copying this link address. If any file is available in the internet, if you want to access from here, definitely you need a kind of tools required, right? That's why wget commands, the curl commands, scp commands, ssh commands, ftp commands, sftp commands, winscp. So FileZilla, you must know it, guys. It's a part of our environment. You may be use combination. So wget, webget. If you want to download the file from the internet, there is a wget. And more on, I go to this apt ls here. So now Java-version school. Now I can say wget I'm trying to download my tar.cz. I just given a path of the URL. wget is a command. You know, wget is not a command, it's a tool. That's why whenever a command is fired at your prompt, if it is not activated, if it is not running, and if you get the output as a command not found, you blindly go and install the particular packages. Sudo yum install -y wget. Now, and more on when you are working with the deployments or configuration, or when you're working with DevOps activities, you will get a kind of error codes. Based on the error codes, you can predict exactly. So 1x error, 2x error, 3x error, 4x error, and 5x error. If you get 5x error, 501, 502, 503, 5000s, you simply blindly say it's a problem at the server side. That's why by seeing the error codes, we can predict exactly. So that's also one of the key points. If you observe our continuously explanation, along with the discussion, practically you are exploring so many theoretical points. People feel it's a theory. No, I can't say theory. See, theory in the sense what? Once you know the fundamentals of the techie behind the execution, then you can understand there is a meaning why you are firing the command. That's why when you are executing a command, behind so many techie factors will be influenced. That's error codes. So how many things we discuss in 30 to 40 minutes? Build files we're talking, Docker you are calling, environment you are saying, user permission you are talking, right? Then commands you are injecting, environment variables you are configuring. You are talking about the existence of the configurations. You are talking about the tools. That's why when you learn a tool, when you learn any technology, there is a sequence of learning will be there. That's why here now I got the Maven file. Now always the file is in zip format. You try to unzip it. Unzipping of what? Gunzip files, which is in the form of tar.gz. If you want to extract the tar.gz file as a zip folder, then you should know the tar command, tar extract as a zip folder, get as a verbose on the screen of the file, which file Apache. So extracting and showing on your display, and you'll get extracted as a zip folder. Now if you just remove if you don't want. Now see, I have Apache Maven 3.81. Now if you want to make very shortcut, MB Apache Maven, your wish. So Maven tool I configure. I download it and extract it. I not configure it. Maven is a builder tool, and Maven is running as a Java process. If there is no Java, if there is no JVM, Maven cannot be run. Maven is always running on the top of the JVM process. Okay. But if I blindly say MVN version, saying sorry guys, MVN is not identified, and even Maven has its own architecture. That's why source code, Git architecture, Maven architecture, Nexus architectures, and Tomcat architecture, Docker architecture, Kubernetes architecture, and Ansible architecture is very important to know it. So that's a sense of micro use is required when you're learning any tool. But here, why the output I got MVN command not found? I download Maven. I downloaded it, but I'm not configured. Operating system is unable to recognize MVN as a command. It means that operating system is unable to detect the MVN environment variables. That's why go and set the MVN environment variables. So where I have to run it, go to vi dot dash underscore profile, isn't it? Sorry. ls, yeah, get your home directory given, right? Go to insert. Now come to the after Java home, you try to give m2 underscore home. Why they given m2? M2 is one of the environment variables. Whenever you download and working with MVN, Maven generates local repositories. That's when you enter into the Maven, local repositories, remote repositories, and shared repositories. See, always try to say one thing, right? There is no high priorities for specific tool. There is a priority for your task. Based on the task only, priority will be changed. Now, industry was talking about more on to the container-based application. That's why you have a Docker and Kubernetes. You have to speak very well on the Docker and Kubernetes. But Docker and Kubernetes always run from the source code management only, right? So that's why even after 10 years, if you speak about CI/CD process, definitely source code management required, build automation is required, static code analysis is required, unit test execution is required, and binary artifact management is required, and server integration is required, and package maintenance, and provisioning, and configuration, then delivery, deployment, orchestration deployment, monitoring, feedback, right? Then improvements and continuous innovation. Finally, go to the assessment, again source code management, again build automation. It's a repetition process. So here I'm trying to give the path of my Maven where exactly it is stored. So I think so you need to give the M2 OPT and Maven, right? Looking at. So you just give the OPT Maven because obviously our Maven is stored in this directory, and the safe side you can give the M2 directory. That M2 will recognize the mvn command from this path of the bin directory. Inside the bin directory, there are some mvn commands are running. Then go and give the path $m2 underscore home and $m2. So two variables are configured successfully, WQ. And echo $m2 underscore home. As you mentioned very clearly, it's not recognized. You need to close the session and re-log in as sudo su -. Now, if I say, right, so my Java installed successfully. My local environment Git is already there, and MVN is already there. So what is this? MVN is not recognized. Wow, why? Even if I go cd apt, MVN -version. Why? Any guess? After successful completion of this Java and Git and Maven, see Maven is already configured, right? CLS, CD, Maven, LS, see there is a bin directory, LS, see there is a MVN, but MVN is not recognized. So this is a kind of common errors you will get it. And if you get errors, you people are escaping. See, when you get error, you need to know how to troubleshoot. And again, I'm repeating, when you go to the live, it's not that much easy, guys. Lot of complexity you may face it. 60 to 70% of the issues are getting through configuration environments settings only. unless until you are not have a complete idea about your application, environment, and the configurations, and networking, and servers, your life is so hell every day. So that's why వెంటనే అవుట్పుట్ రావాలంటే ఎట్లా you need to put some effort on the tool, right? Now what may happen if I think like, because when I say MVN double hyphen version, it's not getting. So where I am in apt maven directory. So when I'm in /opt/maven/binlo, I have a MVN. Now it's saying like so it's saying it's a direct, it's saying like in a directory, but I configure very successfully. When I go back to my Windows environment too, when I fire MVN double hyphen version, wow, see the same command, if I fire it at my present working directory in the Windows, it's showing that, hey Srinivas, you have already configured the e-software Apache bin, right? This is called Maven home. So here I already configure echo dollar it's saying like apt maven bin, your path is already there, isn't it? Then why it is happened? That's why you need to fix it. Anyone guess? So bin is already there. ls I have a files, so mvn -v mvn double hyphen version, but here who am I? I'm a root. I'm a root. Yes, I logged as a root. vi dot +-la. I have a file vi dot bash. See, a Java home path is done successfully. M2 opt maven, and oh, I given a double quotes looking at. Escape colon wq. Now mvn double hyphen version, still it is not recognized. Go to cd apt maven/bin. Now MVN. So I hope some of guys already attended my sessions like the Pavan, Ajay, and you know how to configure the Maven. So will you please help me here how to fix this error? Very common sense, very common, very simple question, very simplified tip. It's saying like the Maven command not found. The Maven command not found in the sense, what is the reason it may be behind? JDK is properly configured, right? Then any guess, even Vijay? ఏంటండి మాట్లాడరు? Okay, ఇప్పుడు let us fix these issues in a temporary way. For example, Right now I'm in the, suppose if I go cd tilt, suppose at runtime, anyhow in manually I configure it, but it's unable to recognize it. Set path is equal to, I'm giving percentage M2. At your runtime, you can set like this. So, okay, now if you go MVN, still not found. Then we'll do one thing, set a percentage, the path, okay, the percentage. You see the magic, how it works down. M2 percentage. If I say MVN, not found. Because I may think that environment variables may not recognize properly at the file. I thought that I'm not giving baseline. Suppose I just exit. I completely log out my session. Then I'm just go to this again. Yes, I'm into the where root sudo su. Log into the root, then mbn. Wow, recognized. So sessions, why should I close it? Why should I restart it? Right? That's why you maybe go and googling it and do some lot of modification, lot of checklist as an answers. But if you observe carefully, when I set the Java home, when I set the Maven home, I close the session. I mean, I log out, I can relog in it. That kind of simple things also will impact. Now, if I say, MVN double hyphen version, now Maven is displayed. See, right now, Maven is using 3.81. So now it's concluding that in my local environment, Git is available, the Java was installed, the Maven installed. Let us go and download the code from the Git or GitHub or Bitbucket in order to work on it. Log out, log in. Now see. Now, what next? If I'm looking at my present working directory, even you can go anywhere, guys, because you logged as a root user, so that wherever you are, automatically your Maven commands will work out. So that's why, but depends on the user. Right now, the entire tool I configure in the root user. Safe side, I to configure on the normal user too, so that you'll get. Okay, so what next? I have to test the mock builds. I have to generate the build. Where it is exactly? It is at the GitHub or it is at the Bitbucket. So let us go and clone your repositories. So copy. So now ls, and here I'm going to download the file from the Bitbucket using git clone command. The cloning the remote repository into the local machine. Oh, sorry, twice repeated. Password. So totally 540. See delta. When you people they'll ask very common interview question. What is the difference between Git architecture and SVN architecture? Most of the people say SVN is a centralized version controlling system. GitHub is a distributed version controlling system. In SVN, every file is committed to the remote repository. For that, you need a network connection. If everything is, if network is disconnected, you can't do check-in and check-out. Reverse is instead of check-in and check-out for every operation at the repository by having a network connection, even you can work under disconnected architecture. For that, you need to take the complete clone of the, you have every individual developer having their own copy, have their own entire copy of the project into the local machine. That anybody can say. But how the files are saved in Git, how the files are saved in GitHub, that's deltas. Delta is more important. You know, when you are looking at the seashore, when you have sand layers, when the water floating at your sandbox at your sand layers, based on the floating of your river, floating of your water, it will create different layers as deltas. Every delta is more important. The same architecture they implemented in the GitHub, in the Git level. You should explain what is the differences between the file, how the file is copied, how the file is made in the SVN, and how the file is saved in the Git as a deltas. So delta architecture is more important. So now just go and ls. I have a directory called a Spring Pipeline. Spady. Yes, these are the different files available in my present working directory, which is downloaded from the GitHub. Now see, there is a pom.xml file. This is the heart of the build automation. I said, again I'm repeating, build automation is essential for your CA process. And the rest of the automation events is also effective when and only if your build process is so precise, so completely automated. Okay, that's why all kind of CA servers, Jenkins or Bamboo or TeamCity or anything, use the build files for your continuous integration, and it's going to create their application delivery pipeline. That's why this is a key point. That's why in build automation, you need to compile the source code into class files or binary files. Then you need to provide some kind of references to your third-party files. You need to provide the path of your configuration files. You need to packaging all the class files or binaries into either jar or var or here or containers. You need to execute your automated test cases, and you need to go with the source code analysis. You need to go with the generating the packages. Once packages are generated, you need to deploy the packages into the Nexus. Then go and deploy the var files into your local environment or remote environments. So how can I reduce this all efforts with the build tool called as a Maven? So these are 8 to 10. That's why 50% of the CI/CD pipeline is completed through only Maven or a Gradle or MS Build or whatever the build automation tool. That's why a central place. Now, how can I cross verify? How can I generate the final output? That's using MVN commands. So MVN validate, I'm saying. So first you have to test whether pom.xml file is having error or not. So that's why, at least if you are in the Jenkins, if you are in the Bamboo, you must know how to configure the Maven inside the Jenkins. You should know you should have some knowledge about how to run the Maven lifecycle. When you would go to the Jenkins, you have to configure so many jobs like freestyle or Maven projects or pipeline or folders or GitHub organizations or multi-branch pipeline or multi-job pipeline or multi-configuration environment. So it depends on the job you selected. That job should also, not should, if you define the CI/CD process in that build process is automated, then you must configure the Maven and you must know at least commands. If you don't know how to define the commands, obviously your work may not finish it. Once you configure the Maven and once you run the Maven lifecycle, if any compilation problems encountered, you can trigger to the Mr. Developer. That's why in the last weekend, maybe before weekend, I explored the concept of build and release activity. What is the pre-build activities and post-build activities? What kind of general errors you may face it in each and every phase. Okay, now now see, so my file is clean. Now I want to compile the code first of all. There are 23 phases are there in the Maven lifecycle. You need to learn at least 10 or 12 pages, so you need to remember it. So here our intention is not exploring the tools. We are finishing how it compiles the code, how it generates a test, and how it generates the packages. Then how to integrate the Sonar Cube, how to integrate the Nexus, how to integrate the Tomcat, how to integrate the Docker, how to integrate the Ansible, how to integrate the Kubernetes. I'm going to generate the compile. When you compile it automatically, the entire source code is compiled and generates a target folder. In the target folder, you have .class files. The .class file is nothing but pre-compiled files. Now see, it's saying like it generating the target. Just go ls. So there is a target, the CD target, ls. These are the different classes and different status reports. Got it? So if you want to clean your targets, actually, that's why there's a lot of story behind the Maven. I came from the development background. I know the use of the Maven effectively. So it requires some plugins concept. When you fire a command, you should not blindly say command. Actually, you're running a goal actually. The goal having its own plugin, the plugin having its own. That's a life cycle contains a collection of phases. Phases contains collection of plugins, and every plugin contains the goal as a commands. We have 3 different life cycle like default life cycle, clean life cycle, and site life cycle. That's why developers' responsibility is more here, right? They must construct the code, they must generate the Maven project accordingly. They must know how to generate the Maven project, how to define the dependencies, plugins, profiles, and different types of injunctions, and how they configure the Git inside the Maven, how they configure the Tomcat inside the Maven, how they will configure the inside the Nexus, inside the POM. See, Nexus integration, Sonar Cube integration, Docker integration. When I go to some extent of thinking, I believe that if there is no developer, who was the DevOps engineer? As a DevOps developer, constantly coming and encroaching the place of the entire SDLs, based on my experience, I'm saying. He know how to understand the Jira. He know how to understand the user stories. He know how to understand the design of the lifecycle. He know how to understand how to develop the code. He know how to run the unit test. He know how to become a part of the integration. You know how to run the Tomcat in their local environment. You know how to generate the Docker file. You know how to generate the Kubernetes file. Because Docker development, Kubernetes development. Nowadays, all multinational companies giving more importance to the developer up to the infrastructure Even each and every developer must know the deployment environment, especially at the production. That's why infrastructure as a code also Mr. Developer is going to write it. That's why when you have that much scope for the developers, you must give more confidence, you must give more competition to the developers. That's why maturity, understanding the process, understanding the learning is so important. Depends on the guys, depends on the attitude, it depends. సింపుల్గా 40 రోజులు నేర్చుకుని వెళ్ళిపోయి కూర్చుందామంటే ఎట్లా? Now see, so if you want to clean it, there is ambient clean cycle, clean colon clean. Actual syntax is even very blind question if they ask you. MVN, what is the syntax of the MVN command? A lot of people say MVN clean, but actually see, MVN compile colon compile also work out. Then before that's what I'm saying, every goal, see before goal, see there is no plugin. This is also valid syntaxes. You must go and define the compiler plugin. Some lifecycle, POM file sometimes developers may define the compilers. Then you need to cross verify it. Suppose I want to run this Maven against the JDK 11, or I want to run the specific Maven on against specific compiler version. So that's why here the actual syntax is a Maven plugin colon goal. Some of the top companies will ask this question, would you please tell me what is that syntax? Blindly, MEN is not a, you should call as a goal. Every goal is having its own plugin. If there is no plugin, there is no POM. So that's why if I say, suppose again I'm compiling, see, ls mbn now this time it's clean, it works out. But previously MVN compile and colon, if it is, it's showing like, sorry, no plugin found. That's so many compilation issues you may face it. Then you have to be alert with the developers. If you say ls, target folder is gone. That's why dependencies, plugins, goals. That's why whatever the tool you talk, not only Maven, you talk about Kubernetes, you talk about Docker, talk about Ansible. Here the tool is not a matter. The matter about prospection, how you learn it, how much you give the importance. That's why don't blindly, foolishly say that only one tool is enough in the part of Cicd, one tool is not enough. So without having basis, without having any base, without having any pillar, then how can you construct the house in the proper way? That's why every tool is so important in the Cicd process. Fundamentally, this is true. Now compile is done. Suppose if you want to run the test, ambient test. Even when you are working in the Cicd process, why should I run the test? Already developer run the test. Even some test cases failure, you should not run the lifecycle. You have to trigger the mails to the developer. MEN test, what kind of test they're running? Is a JUnit or test? And at least you should have some sense. MEN, if I say MEN test, what kind of test case is executing? Your developer written at unit test cases or integration test cases? So that's why integration, you never understand integration. But for us, if you have good experience, you need to run the integration test case also after generating the packages. See, there is a 59 test case are there, no failures, no errors, no escape. So test is also done. Then you have to generate the test report for that, and you have to give some failures to the developer sometimes. Suppose 60 to 70% of the test case is executed and get some success, then only I have to. Otherwise, I have to send an email to my developer. That's why constraints, the condition you have to know. Okay, well, let's see. Now I have a CD target ls See, there's surefire reports, and normal classes and test classes. That's one of the interview question. What is the differences between MVN compile and MVN test compile? For example, see MVN clean. If I say, oh, sorry, I'm in the target directory. I should come back to the pom.xml. And one more thing is very common sense. If you want to run MVN commands, the command must the command work on the pom.xml file only. It means wherever the pom.xml file, go to the directory and run it. So this is one of the bullet point. The point is run the command in which the pom.xml file is exist. That's the reason we are unable to execute. Now this time if I say MVN now see this time MVN test-compile. Now it's executing. Then they'll ask this question, what is the differences between MVN compile and MVN test compile? That's why lifecycle, you should understand lifecycle. Lifecycle contains a collection of pages. Pages contains collection of dependencies and plugins, and every plugin has its goal. Then there are 23 lifecycle, 23 phases are there. Your learning access should speak phases only. Technically should say, I'm running the manual phases. Now see, now, so I compile it. I validate my pom.xml file. I compile it. I clean it. I generate the target folder. Then I run the test compile it. Then I run the test. Then finally I have to generate the package. See. Now, if you want to run the package, MVN package command, package of what kind of package generates, go to the pom.xml file, you have to analyze it. The package is a what? Is a jar or var or year or container? If it is a jar, if it is a var, and if it is a year, what kind of repositories? Whether it is a snapshot repositories or release repositories. If it is a snapshot repositories, how to maintain the version. If it is a snapshot, if it is a release repository, how to maintain the versions. What is the differences? The release repository in the sense production, ready for production. Snapshot in the sense under development. When I say MVN package, so now see, I got the building var. I got the var called as a Spring Pipeline 4.2.var. Yes, I done it. I just config. I generate the package. My work is over. ls retarget ls. I have a Spring Pet Clinic 4.2.var. Var is ready. Var queues. Now final output is ready. Then I can push this var file to the Nexus, or I can push my var file to the Tomcat. Right now, if I go to go to the cd apt ls. Right now, I have only Maven, and so let us go and download the. Can we continue another 15 minutes, guys? Is it okay? Happy నిద్రపోతున్నారండి. I'm asking you, can you Sairam say yes? Yes, in the sense you are able to listen another 15 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now see. Let us go and configure. Now I want to test this package is perfectly working into the Tomcat or not. That's why I want to download and configure the Tomcat. Okay, so let us download the Tomcat and let us try to start the Tomcat and try to run it and try to manually deploy this application into the Tomcat. So that just give a time 15-20 minutes, we'll finish it off this part. So one is what here? So let us go and download your Tomcat. See. Yeah, so here I'm trying to configure Tomcat. Tomcat 7, I will take it. This is the URL. So wget paste. Now see ls. As usual, I'm going to extract the file xzvf Apache. Now ls rm-rf Apache. Ls, then move. I'm going to renaming as Tomcat. Ls. Now I have a Tomcat in my working directory. Cd Tomcat. See, Tomcat is a server. By default, Tomcat is running in the 8080. Even Tomcat is written in the Java, JSP and servlets. That's why if there is no Java, you can't run the Tomcat. Insert Tomcat. See, there is a bin directory, conf directory, libs directory, and web apps. See, web apps directory is the place you need to maintain all our deployable artifacts. So whatever the pack is generated, it's going to be deployed into the web apps directory. If there is no web apps directory, you can't. If there is a web apps directory, you can create your own root directory, you can maintain it. Okay, and more on Tomcat is a server. The administrator should maintain the Tomcat, should provide the authentication, authorization, access control to the server in order to run your application, right? As a DevOps engineer, I should deploy into the Tomcat. So DevOps engineer should have some proper access permission to interact with the server. That's why he needs some permission. That's why he needs some read permission, write permission, execute permission on the specific folder or all folders, right? Here, cd conf. If you're looking at this conf directory, we have different files like server.xml and tomcat.xml. This is the file. See, these files are very, very important. Web.xml, server.xml, tomcat.xml file. So tomcat.xml. You just go vi tomcat.xml. Go to insert mode. Here, administrator should define the user credentials of the user or specific DevOps engineer in order to interact with the server. So here, I'm just giving the credentials. How to give the credentials here? See, I already copy this. Role name is equal to manager GUI, manager script, JMSXE. Right now, I said a default configuration, isn't it? Better to go to this one, to the directory, software, Apache Tomcat, conf, tomcat.xml, with Notepad++. Okay. I'm giving username is admin, password is admin, guys. Same, copy. What I'm doing here, I'm giving users information inside it. In order to access the Tomcat, you must define your username and passwords and role names. Manager GUI, admin GUI, manager script, manager JMX, manager status. So roles, manager GUI, admin GUI, manager script, manager JMX, and manager status. Escape : now in order to Tomcat is running on the default port 8080. You can change the port number 2 also. How can you cross verify? cd conf ls cd server.xml. It's a file, right? Go to insert mode. Have a connected port, guys. See, connector port. You can also change the port to your target one. And Tomcat is a server. You need to start the Tomcat server, which is running on the Linux server. Linux is running on the EC2 instance, isn't it? So that you have to define the inbound rules to access the Tomcat server. Go to the security group CSCD server and go to inbound rules. Go to edit inbound rules. And right now only 22. I'm adding the rule custom TCP. What's the port number you are going to access? 8080. Okay, so anywhere you can say now let's save the rules. Now you set the port number and let us go and start the Tomcat server. I'm not changing the port as it is. I'm accessing the 8080 ls. And where is the, if I want to start the server, you need to go to the one directory called as a bin directory. Bin is a directory which contains some shell files in order to start your server. See, there is a startup.sh and shutdown.sh. So if you want to run the shell script sh, startup.sh. Once you run this, it's saying like, hey, your Tomcat server is started. How can I access the Tomcat? That's a socket. What is a socket? Protocol, IP address, and port number. So what is a protocol and IP address? Yes, that Tomcat is running on which instance? EC2 instance. EC2 instance having public URL as well as a public DNS. So copy IP address or DNS. So here and give the port number called 8080. Now I got this Tomcat 7.02. Click on Manager app. I'm just giving my username is admin, password is admin. Now see, my Tomcat is running. So now you go back to your see, I have already a Spring Pipeline, right? Because we already generates a package. Where it is saved? It is saved in the target folder, isn't it? This is my file. This file I have to keep into where? Tomcat. So again, I'm repeating. Inside the Tomcat, there is a web apps directory. Looking at here, again, I'm repeating. So cd the Tomcat ls. This is the directory where we have to maintain all var files into the var directory. So looking at apt Tomcat. This is the directory where we have to copy the files. Let us go manually first. I'm going back to there is our project Spring Pipeline. Inside it there is a target folder, right? File. So how to copy? Copy command, copy minus rf recursively forcibly Spring Pipeline 4.2 dot where to where we have to copy. See app Tomcat, right? Now just go and refresh it. Now I got the Spring Pipeline 4.2. Now see what happens here. When I click here, now I got the Tomcat. This is manual, right? This is a manually. Instead of doing it manually, with the commands also you can deploy it. Suppose how to deploy it. So if you want to undeploy it from the Tomcat server, if you come here, see there is a start, stop, reload, undeploy, isn't it? So these commands will be enabled when you are working with some configurations. So I just done manually. Now go back. Just cd plus cd tomcat. There is a file called as a rm-rf. I'm removing a file from here, this directory. Now, so go and refresh the page. Right now there is no Spring Pipeline 4.2. But this is a manually. I don't want to manually copy it. Now all the environment is in the same environment, same machine. If it is in different machine, you can use the FTP command, SCP command in order to copy the files. So secure copy and FTP, SSH, WinSCP, you need to learn those tools, guys. Of course, we'll see. Got it? Now, instead of doing it manually, right now, I have a file called as a Spring, folder called as Spring Pipeline. Inside the Spring Pipeline, our build file is pom.xml file. Inside the pom.xml file, you must define the Tomcat configuration. Who will deploy the application into the Tomcat? Maven. So how the Maven is going to deploy the application into the Tomcat? For that, you need to define some necessary configuration. You need to configure some credentials of your Tomcat server credentials, Tomcat dependencies, and Tomcat plugins inside the pom.xml file, as well as Tomcat usernames and passwords and URLs. Let's go and see vi the pom.xml file. Go to insert mode. Now see it's a big file. See, the Tomcat is running on specific URL. What is that? See, it's running on the local host, but it is not running on the local host, right? So this is, you need to give the what? You need to give what? 8080, and this is for what? IP address of the EC2, because we're running in the cloud, isn't it? You copy and give the IP address here. Just go, not here. Just go to the directory, the paste. So this is our URL, and server name is, username is admin, password is admin. So simply, that's why I'm saying build file is the most important file. Every key information must be inside it. If it is something missed, then we can't do it. Now back, just scroll down. Here too. 8080. Just give the IP address. Escape. Click. Now ambient clean Now if I say MV on Tomcat 7 colon deploy, this is my command in order to deploy the generated var into the server. See, it's deployed. It's a deployed. Just go and go to the Tomcat and refresh it. See, pet clinic. Got it. So that's automation. You just go even MVN Tomcat 7 colon undeploy. I want undeployed. Undeploying application. Just go. If you go and refresh it, it's gone. That's it. దానికి ఇప్పుడు అవసరమా 2 months నాలాంటోడైతే ఆ గిట్ ఒక 10 రోజులు 15 రోజులు మ్యావెన్ కాబట్టి టాటాయిస్ ఏముంది ఇలా చెప్తారు ఒక వీడియో ఓపెన్ చేస్తే ఇలా ఉంటుంది 2 hours అయిపోద్ది ఎందుకు కాన్ఫిగర్ చేస్తున్నాడో తెలియదు ఎలా చేస్తున్నదో తెలియదు మనం కూడా డెవాప్స్ అందరూ డెవాప్స్ ఇంజనీర్స్ కాబట్టి ఇప్పుడు టామ్ క్యాట్ ఉందండి టామ్ క్యాట్ 15 గంటలు చెప్పుకోవచ్చు అందులో కాంటెక్స్ట్ అది మీకు లైవ్కి వెళ్తే ఆ ఫీల్ తెలిసింది సో దట్స్ వై రేపు మనం నెక్స్ట్ పార్ట్ని మనం మాట్లాడదాం సో ఇప్పుడు సోర్స్ కోడ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ బిల్డ్ ఆటోమేషన్ తర్వాత ఏం మాట్లాడాం వి ఇంటిగ్రేట్ ది యూనిట్ టెస్ట్ అండ్ టామ్క్యాట్ ఇంటిగ్రేట్ చేసాం రేపు ఈ సోర్స్ కోడ్ అనాలిసిస్ తర్వాత సోనార్ క్యూబ్ అండ్ నెక్సస్ ఆర్ జెఫ్రాగ్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేస్తే నెక్స్ట్ జెన్కిన్స్లోకి వెళ్ళి హోల్ సెటప్ పెట్టేద్దాం తర్వాత డాకర్ తర్వాత యాన్సిబుల్ కుబర్నెటిస్ చెప్పి తర్వాత గ్రూవీ స్క్రిప్టింగ్ సో ఐ థింక్ సో కమింగ్ 3-4 days ఫ్రైడే సాటర్డే సండే I will discuss guys ఈ పైప్లైన్ ఫినిష్ చేద్దాం థ్యాంక్ యూ